Oh. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. A couple minutes after 2, so I think we can start getting rolling here.
You need to look into Haynes and writing grant. Haynes Corporation.
Hey Jeff, I think that looks like a rotation.
2,700 bucks was one of the grants that was funded that year against all the others.
Good afternoon, everyone in the room, on the phone, and viewing us from Facebook. Thank you so much for attending. We'd really like to thank our friends at North Carolina State University's Veterans Services for helping us to arrange this space. As many of you know, we have a hurricane going on, so the emergency management space is currently occupied. Hopefully they'll get the floodwaters gone so we can be home next month. Anyway, let's get started. Thank you again for everyone who's managed to make it here through floodwaters and what have you. I have to express the regrets from Secretary Hall. He was pulled in a different direction because of the storm, as in fact were all of our principals. Hurricane response has been at the top of everyone's plate for the last 10 days, and I know everybody's been working double overtime. Please put your cell phones on stun, and we'll get going here. All right. said, Secretary Hall has been pulled away, but he sends his regrets, and we'll look forward to seeing him next month. And we'll go through with the updates, and here is my boss, Ken Schussland from DMH, and he's going to deliver our updates. Sir.
Good afternoon, everybody. Ken Schussland, I'm the Associate Director for Consumer Policy. You want me to come on up? That would be So again, I'm Ken, wow, that's loud. Ken Schussland, I'm the Associate Director for Consumer Policy, the Division of Mental Health, Developmental Disabilities, and Substance Abuse Services. As Jeff mentioned, we have been in sort of full-on recovery mode from Hurricane Florence. I'm here on behalf of Deputy Secretary for Behavioral Health and IDD Services, Cody Kinsley. He sends his regards and regrets for not being here. I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to be here. I'd also like to just thank all of you. I know most of you have probably gone above and beyond the last couple of weeks, getting your own communities to aid those in need from hurricane recovery services. So we really don't have all that much programmatically. I can't see exactly what, oh, right in front of me. So, all right. So just a few announcements. So the department and division, we're pleased to announce the allocation of $850,000 to support the operations of the 4 NC-served networks across the state. I know a lot of you, most of you, have heard us talk about NC-served for the last several months and the great work that it's doing. And I think the timing of it is really sort of perfect. It was not designed to be used for a crisis, but Hurricane Florence has really sort of brought out the things that program does very, very well. So we're glad to have that in place. So in partnership with our teammates at Via Health, Asheville Buncombe Christian Community Ministries, Veteran Bridge Home, the USO of North Carolina, and the Eastern Carolina Human Services Agency. So we're just adding on to the efforts of that pilot project. You know, like I mentioned earlier, you know, this program was really very timely during the hurricane and immediately after. So while the eastern region obviously was under some constraints, the other 3 regions definitely stepped up and surged all of their resources to help out in that area. So the additional funds will come very, very handy for that. So that's essentially really the big update that we have. I would also like to mention our Words to Live By multimedia campaign, reduce veteran suicide in North Carolina. I think some of you have seen some of the video clips so far. Just exceptional work, and Jeff's been doing a great job with that. So keep looking for that. I think I'm not sure if the stuff is up there, but it's www.ncgw.org. You can view all of those there. So I think we've got a great schedule. We're going to be talking a lot about NC-served and the efforts that it was able to do during the hurricane and after. We're going to have a great panel. Thank you all so much for being here, and continue to just be with your communities in their time of need. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right. Mr. Doyle, or is Ms. Exner going to speak for you?
Yeah, good afternoon. I don't think we have a slide for updates, but kind of the same situation we've been in response to Florence these last few weeks. I guess as an update along those lines, the VA is working very closely with FEMA and the Red Cross, and our focus right now is ensuring that we're getting staff on site with all the shelters, reviewing those who have been displaced, and looking at first, what resources are available through the disaster relief, through FEMA, simply because that is a much more expedited fashion and is focused on this resource. But luckily, being the VA, and with some of the homeless programs that I oversee and other programs as well, if FEMA can't meet all of those needs, or if people don't qualify for that initially, we're then able to be there on site to assist getting those other resources as well. I was at a meeting this morning actually with some of the homeless providers, and just because we presented a few months ago about that, I think one of the really exciting things is this state is actually using a disaster as possibly a way to do even more good, as a way of identifying people who maybe we haven't been able to identify in the past, and help continue to address this issue and address housing issues further along in the process. I can also tell you that a lot of the discussion this morning was regarding kind of phase 2 of this, is because of the looking at the communities after the disaster for the next few months. As we see people who are having issues with housing moving forward, this will be another way of identifying that and helping to get resources to them. I think outside of the direct response to the shelters, I think it's it's been a really interesting process for me to see how this has moved forward. The VA has sent down DIMPS teams, disaster emergency medical, what is it? Personnel. And just the response that we've seen nationwide about this. They've opened up kind of medical clinics in parking lots at Walmarts, outside of different medical centers that aren't able to be open because of certain damage that was caused during this. Not always the best thing to say, but I think that we had to cancel like 18,000 appointments just because of damage and not being able to open up facilities, and staff not being able to get across the flooded roads. And these teams are coming down here, and they will stay here until we catch up on all of that. And so, I think that it's really been a nice thing to see as far as the nation responding to this, getting agencies in place, getting people in place to really be there and address this. So that's it from the VA. Thank you.
Thank you, VA. Other half of VA, the Veterans Benefits Administration. Mr. Brian Ward is here to tell us what they're up to. Thanks, sir.
Good afternoon. I just have a couple things I wanted to mention. We have the Veterans Experience Action Center that we'll be participating in the Charlotte area at the Friendship Baptist Church. It's October 10th through the 12th, and the 10th and 11th will be 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. and October 12th, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. This event is hosted by the Friendship Baptist Church, Mecklenburg County, the Piedmont Veterans Coalition, and NC Serves Metro Lyon. We will be there in full force with our people who process claims. They'll provide face-to-face assistance with claims and appeals. There will also be VA hospital individuals there providing health benefit, enrollment, and assistance, as well as we will have military sexual trauma counseling and mental health screening and counseling and other resources. We'll have service organizations there and other entities there to provide services for veterans. I know the North Carolina Department of Veterans Services will be there in full force supporting the event. I can tell you that we recently had 2 events canceled. There was a Veterans Experience Action Center in Cary that was supposed to occur, and the hurricane, we were forced to cancel that. Also, we had a smaller event in Goldsboro that was canceled due to the hurricane. So we expect this to be a really large event, because I feel like a lot of people that were gonna go to Cary are gonna come to Charlotte. If you've never had the experience of going to one of these Veterans Experience Action Centers, if you're in the area, I encourage you to go. It is something to see. We serve hundreds of veterans at these events, and we do a lot of great things in serving veterans. In some cases, if we're able to, we'll actually process the claim. We can't always do that on site, but if we can, we do take care of that claim, or at least move it to the next stage of the benefits cycle. The other thing I wanted to bring up was Vet Talks. and resource fair at the Goodwill Industries in Winston-Salem. That is November 16th. It will start at 2 o'clock. The big part of this is we will have a number of veterans that will get up in front of everybody and tell their story. These stories will be recorded and posted on the internet for all to see, and we've been doing these over the past year, and I can tell you a lot of the stories that the veterans have to tell is really powerful, and it's something very positive. It's really putting forth a very positive image of our veterans. One additional thing that it didn't have on the slide, I think I brought this up last time. We were very fortunate that in the latest round of resource allocation in the Veterans Benefits Administration, they decided to, what I call right-size our vocational rehabilitation staffing. We have been very severely understaffed in this state for a lot of years. Even so, we've always had done some great work with the people that we do have in that division. We are adding 20 vocational rehab counselors to our staff in North Carolina, and they'll be spread across the state, and I expect to have all of them on board for the most part by the end of October, and that's going to be a boon to, to our division, to our office, and to the veterans, especially to the veterans we serve. And it's going to bring our caseload per voc rehab counselor from about 180 down to 125, which is much more manageable. You can have more time to do that one-on-one counseling services that we provide to veterans. The last thing I'll bring up is at the bottom of the slide, you'll see our website. You can always go there if you want to see what's going on. We try to post everything we're involved in with outreach. I'm getting a head shake there. Oh, so you guys don't see the slide with the Veterans Experience Action Center? Oh, thank you. Sorry, I guess I was supposed to change the slide. But at the bottom, that is our website, and anytime you can go there and you can see everything we have going on in the near future. I will tell you, I know I said that was the last thing, but just one more thing. I went to Camp Lejeune Sunday to take a look at our out-base sites, because we have out-base sites at Bragg and Lejeune. And Lejeune, I can tell you, if you haven't been out there, there's about 90% of those buildings were affected and damaged, from a small amount of damage to a large amount of damage on that base. And that area has really been hard hit, so I ask you to just keep those people in your thoughts and prayers. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And last up, but first in our hearts, is Martin Falls, our new Assistant Secretary for Veterans Affairs for the state of North Carolina. Please welcome Colonel Falls, and here you are, sir. Go to the next slide.
Well, good afternoon, and it's an honor for me to be here. Secretary Hall couldn't be here, as Jeff said. He's called out to other duties. But you can see the events we got going on and a couple of highlights. And Brian's already said it, the VAC. We're anticipating that to be a full house that day because of the carry that was canceled. I guess Florence trumped it, but anyway, that we're looking for that to be a big one. We hope to schedule some events in back down in the eastern part, after the first of the new year for the federal government. But you can see the events. But October 17th is our 3rd anniversary of our department. We're going to have a gala there. It was September, whatever. Hurricane trumped that. So we had to move to October 17th. So we'd like to invite everyone there just to come in and see what we do and take some, to get to know who we are and see what we do in the day-to-day world. But the conclusion, I guess, is we're building a couple of new nursing homes. One in Kernersville, one in Raleigh. That's a process, and right now it is a difficult process, but we're going to get through it. We're going to build those 2 homes for the veterans in North Carolina. We're also going to expand the 2 cemeteries, one in Black Mountain and the one in Spring Lake. We're going to expand those. We got federal grants for it. It's going to happen. we're gonna keep doing that business, but, remember the hurricane. And how many folks in here, how many of your homes were devastated? Couple, 3, okay? The rest of us were not. The rain's gone, clouds are gone, sun's shining, but the devastation is left. And the trauma is left. For those who don't have any issues, it's traumatic. Even if you don't have issues. And this is gonna last for decades. This is not just gonna last for a year. And it's not just veterans. But we went out to the, one of the things we did, pushed all my VSOs out to the shelters, contacted veterans, and anyone else that they could help there. They weren't affected, but these people in the shelters were. And you can see it in their faces, the loss of everything, and the rebuilding again. And how long has it been since Matthew came and we had to rebuild? And here we are again, same thing. And how long was Floyd before Matthew? And we had to rebuild again. And the devastation of the farmers is astronomical. Of our hog farms, of our chickens and fowls, talk to agriculture. Look at what these farmers have lost, again. All that water standing on that grass, guess what? It's dead. So you know what's gonna have to happen this winter? Is hay is gonna have to be brought in to feed those animals. Because we don't have the grass. The grass will not grow until next spring. So just keep that in mind, that this state is devastated because of the hurricane. And it affects veterans, non-veterans, and everyone. But you know what? We're all in this together. And together we'll succeed and come through the end. But we gotta do things smartly. That's all I have. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, everyone. We're gonna, I'll give you all a little update on the things we've been working on through the governor's working group and following up on our practice improvement collaborative last November to reduce veteran suicide. So just a little bit of information here. These are our viewership numbers. You'll see the little red line at the bottom is how many folks are in the room. That's usually 100 to 120 individuals. Last month we had 4,694 people click in on Facebook to see what we were discussing. So I want to thank each and every one of you who has done that and everyone who shares, likes, and friends us. This is the way we get the word out. This is how you get the word out to 720,000 North Carolina veterans and the people that work with them on what we're doing, because success, as Colonel Falls says, requires communications and coordination. Next part is the Words to Live By videos. I don't know how many folks saw those because they went out in concurrence with the hurricane. We have a series of 6 videos that we shot with our friends at Campsite Strategies, our communications folks. These are North Carolina veterans. Many of us have worked with these individuals, and they're speaking very clearly about the message they want to get out. So we're going to have a little bit of viewership of that in a moment. Also, so if I can finish up with my updates, one of the things that we do, I'm also the SAMHSA, Soldiers and Military Veterans point of contact for the state of North Carolina. So SAMHSA has been down in the Charlotte-Mecklenburg area several times since the summer, helping them to organize a community response to reduce veteran suicide. There were 2 separate programs the folks in Charlotte managed to combine into one, so they've been mapping the crisis intercept system to find out what happens when you pick up the phone. Where are the holes? Where does the ball get dropped? And then also a mayor's challenge, or community challenge, to fill in those gaps and fix these things. Was on a conference call with them yesterday morning, and they are really moving forward. Much of the structure they're adopting is like governor's working group. So they've got some subcommittees, and they're going to have regular series of meetings. Charlotte is committed to reduce veteran suicide, and we're committed to do whatever we need to do to help them. And so here's a picture of the group, and I know many of y'all know these individuals, front and center there. We've got Janine McGee, Charlotte Mecklenburg, Veteran Service Manager and former State Veteran Service Officer. All right, thank you very much. I would like to introduce our friend, Mr. John Camp, and he's going to talk to you a little bit about the video project we've been doing with North Carolina veterans and show us some short videos. Thank you, sir.
Hey, thanks, Jeff. Yeah, hi guys. I usually sit in the back. If you have seen me sneak into the other events, I've been coming to these for 5 or 6 months. I like my little cat perch in the back. And from there, I will quickly say that there is more dedication. I've been going as a 20-year veteran reporter. I'm seeing a lot of these from the back for a long time. This is a real one. You guys are doing amazing work, and it really is a privilege to be part of it. In the back, I sit next to usually Anthony McLeod. Some heads nodding. If you know Anthony, he just had a baby boy this morning. So he's not here today. If you know him and you want to drop him a line, they don't have a name yet. They were thinking of Angus, but they're not going to do that. They thought that was a bad idea now, so they're going to go with something else. They don't know what they're going to go with. Also, a new addition to the Governor's Institute is Amy Johnson. Amy, raise your hand. And that's Alex sitting next to Amy. If you don't know Alex either. The Governor's Institute, of course, is the group that kind of ties a lot of these threads together. And Amy is a new communications person. I'm positive. Love to meet all of you. Quickly, I'll just say this about our project. We were brought in to shoot a series called Mental Health Minutes for UNC-TV. That series has been dissolved, but the funding stuck around, and the interest in putting a face on a lot of the challenges and issues that you all deal with on the daily, putting a public face on that, the interest in that effort stuck around. And out of that then came this Words to Live By initiative. I hope you have seen that. If you haven't, please look for it and share it. Social media is only as good as the amount of people who share those things. It is a communal effort, obviously, and so that's what we need to encourage you all to do, is push. When you see videos that come out of the Governor's Institute and the Governor's Working Group, please push those into your networks. It's critical. We need that. We need that effort. That's the value of social media. Today we're not going to look at Words to Live By. Today we're going to talk about treatment courts. We went down to Lillington. Mark Tichy, raise your hand. Probably most of you in this room know Mark. Mark is in Lillington known as a saint, prophet, good man of all things. Mark saves a lot of lives down there, and you're going to see that in play here. If you're sitting on the end and you want to see it better, feel free to move over. This is it's probably a 5-minute video. And I don't know if Bruce Capehart is here. Is Bruce with us today? He wasn't able to make it. You'll pop in, Bruce pops in at the very end of this video to we talked to him about what we saw down at the treatment court, and he offered his perspective on it. So it is about a 5 or 6 minute video. Last time I think they tried to play our video and we all sat in silence for like 4 minutes, and it was very awkward, and I apologize. I don't think it was my fault. I think I fed it with audio, I don't know. But nonetheless, this one will hopefully have audio, and can we play it? I can play it. You can play it. Let's turn it up. How do we do that? For you, what was it?
It's just PTSD symptoms and everything was just so overwhelming for me. PTSD. Have you worked in a traditional or?
There's always some kind of a problem. Stand by.
Yeah, I'd be in jail.
I would also have a felony following me around, which I,
Just be quiet.
Crazy fines, ridiculous.
This treatment court will make that felony go away. Is it worth watching? Can you hear it? Sort of. Not really. Let's go ahead and stop it if we can. I'll push it out. I just don't want you to sit here like you did last time for 4 minutes of more silence and going, this is very frustrating. Frustrating for me as well. This is a darn good video. If we can't figure this, we'll give it 1 second. If we can't figure it, we'll restart it. If we can't, then please watch it on your own channels. We'll push it out to you after this event. It really tells the story of Mark's life and the value of these treatment courts, I think, in a very personal way. Okay. Oh, maybe we'll be able to do it. Maybe not. Knock it all the way up. Yeah. respond to touches.
Can you put the microphone on the speaker?
Well, that's a try. I don't even know what the
Speakers are up in the ceiling.
Oh.
All right, let's try the video one more time.
Hopefully you'll be able to hear it, folks. I'm sorry, it's kind of a pain.
Veterans Court came to me offering me assistance.
Feel better?
And I took
Let it
it.
run.
I would be in jail right now. And this has been a godsend.
Got in some trouble.
Caught a few BWIs.
I had a series of UWIs.
Well, I got DUI, and it was my third one.
For you, what was it?
Marijuana. Marijuana.
It's just, PTSD symptoms and everything was just so overwhelming for me.
PTSD.
Have you worked in the traditional court with the alternative?
I wouldn't be lying.
Yeah, I didn't do jail.
I would also have a felony following me around, which I didn't want.
I don't know how many crazy fines they had, it'd be ridiculous.
This treatment court will make that felony go away.
I'm honest, be disappeared, gone.
It helped me actually realize what I was doing, what was making me act in negative ways, and then just being sober.
I've been clean for 311 days a day. Every day, not that I've kept or anything.
Somewhere around December is when I first got sober, and it took about 4 months for me to really get into the mindset of, okay, that was the drugs making me do those things.
It's turned out to be a God-sent thing. It's a blessing, because I am sober 30 days in.
They gave that to you when you started?
Actually 60. I had to get it out of my system, which took 30 days. No, they gave this to me today.
All veterans, please rise. Dear veteran, we will never fully understand what you were required to do or how you were able to do it. With lessons and gratitude, we ask that you remember that you are loved. Please accept this veteran's pin and wear it proudly. Know that it is provided to you from our members who are honored that you chose this court to assist you in a more healthy future. You can count on this team to be there for you.
It's really super good support, and at any time of day, I've got list of phone numbers I can call if I need them.
I mean, and then the threat of getting in trouble, you just want to stay sober.
I've never felt more love, companionship, people that care about you, support you, for the mentors, all the way up to Mr. Teaching, the director.
I can see where some of the veterans fall down, I mean, absolutely, and self-medicate, and then all the issues that they had while they were deployed downrange, it's deep inside of them, they're avoiding it.
A lot of these veterans have TBI, PTSD, a lot of them are homeless. They get out of the Army, they are put back into the world to survive. Some of them are, because of their injuries, they can't do that.
And that's what this court does. It works through this special system where you, little at a time, you expose that. It's like surgical. And eventually, that individual starts looking at life differently.
It's important for them to know that there are people who are concerned, people like a judge, people like a retired colonel. We are concerned. We want to help them succeed. And that's a big deal for these guys. But when they feel like they have been thrown away by the country, the fellow citizens, it's a big deal that you have someone like us who are concerned and want them to succeed.
It's saving lives. We've seen saving lives. And for those that we can't get to, we've seen them lose lost lives.
I will say this, that it's all true. It's not fabricated, it's all true.
And I start therapy with a Dr. Valentine next week, every week, for an hour session to deal with me on my PTSD and anxiety and depression.
As opposed to going to prison for a long time, to helping me to become sober and more productive in my community.
The treatment court did that for you?
Yes, sir. I wouldn't have gotten it any other way.
Anecdote you just outlined
self-medicating with marijuana, to stop using marijuana, and is now going inside of their PTSD, and expect to have those PTSD symptoms reduced, which will eliminate the drive to want marijuana because the anxiety symptoms are gone. Treatment has to be individualized. Other diagnoses and other medications can create side effects, problems, can cause medications not to work. Letters and social media can be great sources of information, and we all know that military communities rely on each other for information, but that information is best viewed as a starting point for a conversation with your doctor. The first medication you try might not work. It's very important to not throw your life on the ground and quit just because something didn't. Remember what your first sergeant said, keep putting one foot in front of the other. And finally, remember to be patient. If things don't work, come back and tell your doctor about it. We know treatment works. Treatment is highly effective. Psychotherapy works, medications work, and if veterans come in and see us, or go start with their family doctor, or call the vet center, they can open the door to treatment and open the doors to recovery.
All right, so thank you. Mark, thank you very much. That kind of access is the only way to tell these very human stories when you can get behind the curtain, pull it back a little bit, and like you said, kind of expose some of that stuff. So thank you very much. I will leave it at that. I'll just encourage you all to know that Campsite, my company, is here. We are committed to this. We are committed to the groups who work in this endeavor, and therefore, if any of you think that video would help your causes, if that this kind of service, we want to help, and we might be able to work through the Government Institute to do that for you, or we can work on a one-on-one basis. My point is, there is that after 20 years reporting, I can tell you that people's stories, the idea of stories, is critical, and there are so many out there. You know, down in Charlotte. The kind of stories that we'll get out of Winston-Salem, the kind of stories that we'll find from the hurricane. These are how people associate with each other. These are the sinews that get us through our community and help us help our neighbors. So if you know of good stories, emotional stories, good people to tell the good stories, help us. I'm at these every month. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. And we will be sharing these videos throughout the holiday season and into the spring as well. This is a long-term campaign, and because you have to keep at it. All right, now so for the meat of our conversation today, I would like to invite our panelists to come up, and we're going to have a little conversation about substance use and co-occurring disorders amongst veterans in North Carolina and what our state and federal response systems are. So if I can invite our panelists up here, and I'd like to introduce Didi Severino, who is the director of everything. No, Didi runs substance abuse prevention and treatment programs for the Division of Mental Health, and has to sit in an office next to me, so sorry.
Fortunately, I was a clinician. So thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. I think the way this is going to work is I'm going to provide you a brief bio of our panelists up here, and then they will come up to the podium and give you an overview of the services and programs that they provide. And then I guess we'll open it up for conversation, discussion, and questions. Does that sound right, Jeff?
Yes, ma'am.
So first, I have Dr. Meredith Rowland. She received her PhD in clinical psychology from Binghamton University, in 2009. She completed her internship at the Rural Appalachia Consortium in Hazard, Kentucky, an area highlighted as a center of the opioid epidemic. Following internship, Dr. Rowland joined the VA Medical Center in Salem, Virginia, as a staff psychologist on the residential substance abuse treatment section, unit, short. Okay. During that time, she also worked as a staff psychologist with Mount Regis Center, a residential substance abuse treatment facility serving the surrounding community. Dr. Rowland then joined the VA Medical Center in Salisbury, where she serves as the Substance Abuse Services Coordinator, overseeing a 35-bed residential treatment unit, as well as outpatient and intensive outpatient programs in Charlotte, Salisbury, and Kernersville. Dr. Rowland.
Right, is that right?
Yes, sir. There you go.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much for the opportunity to kind of get the word out about our services in Salisbury. For those of y'all that don't know, Salisbury is kind of situated in between Charlotte, Greensboro, and Winston-Salem. So we kind of feed from all three of those communities. The question was kind of how do we get services at the VA, particularly in Salisbury? And the answer, unfortunately, is it depends on where you're at. So if you are outside of the VA and not connected to the VA at all, we're going to need you to get enrolled first and to be able to receive services. But if you've already taken that step, the number here is listed. Feel free to call and speak to our admissions coordinator, and we can get the ball rolling for services in any of those areas. So we currently have locations in Salisbury, Kernersville, and Charlotte. If you're already enrolled in the VA, we get referrals from individuals who make a comment or a statement to their primary care physician or to their mental health or any specialty physician that you see can place a consult. And once a consult is placed, I get a notification that says, hey, this person wants services, and within 24 hours, we'll outreach that veteran and get them set up. We also have daily walk-in. Any day of the week at any point, you can walk into the VA and go to the mental health area and say, hey, I need a substance abuse assessment. At that point, you will meet with a social worker and we'll get the initial assessment going. There's official walk-in times in Salisbury, in Kernersville, and in Charlotte. At that point, we actually have a dedicated person that is there to receive the referrals. So walk into the mental health area, let them know you're there for substance abuse services, or you'd like to know more about it, and we will be glad to sit down and meet with you. So what happens is that we have to have an accurate assessment of what's going on. So when you come to either walk in or have an intake appointment, a social worker is going to sit down with you and let you know about the services that we have available and also take a history. We need accurate information about exactly what your substance abuse is, what your challenges are, what your mental health diagnoses are. So that appointment takes about an hour, and we try to get as much biopsychosocial information as we can. And then from that information right there, the social worker will talk to you about our 3 levels of care and what we think is appropriate. We have residential in Salisbury. We have a 35-day program with 35 beds. People ask me all the time, how do you do this day in and day out? And I said, there is no better place to work in the VA. You can come and live at the VA for 35 days, and I guarantee you, at least before you leave my doors, you will look different, you will think differently, and you will feel differently. There's nowhere else in the VA that I can guarantee that happens except in our residential program. It is one of the coolest places ever. That said, after that, we would encourage you to step down to an intensive outpatient program. That is a program that's 9 hours of programming a week. It's 3 groups a week for 3 hours, and then intensive case management. That is limited to 12 to 15 people so that they can actually do the one-on-one intensive case management. So you're looking at about 10 hours of treatment a week. And then we also have outpatient. Outpatient is generally an hour a week. If you want to pick up an additional group, that's fine. We have case managers available, but it's not at the same level as the IOP. And then we're growing with medication assistance. So our medication assistance right now is really focused on alcohol use and opioid use, but we have physicians, psychiatrists that are waivered to prescribe different types of medication that can help with like anti-craving and to help with withdrawal symptoms that result from detoxing. I will say that if you go through this assessment, if a veteran goes through this assessment and residential care is the recommended level, meaning that's what looks like is gonna help them the best. We do have a screening team that is gonna review the case. In order to be appropriate for residential care, you have to be medically and psychiatrically stable. So we just have our team, our medical staff and our mental health staff to look, do a chart review and just make sure that once you get here, you're appropriate for our program. I got excited, and this is basically what I just said about what kind of actual services we offer. The medication assistance, I listed 3. These are kind of the most popular medications that we're currently using in Salisbury. Is the Suboxone, the Subutex, and the naltrexone. The Salisbury VA currently doesn't prescribe methadone, but we have resources in the community that we can work with if a veteran is already on methadone and needs to continue that. Questions, if you have comments, my contact information is here. Absolutely give me a call, give our admissions coordinator a call. We can talk to people. I counsel lots of families on the phone that say, hey, my son, my father, my boyfriend, my girlfriend, whoever it is, we can figure out a way to get them into services. We don't currently actually have access issues, so we can get you seen within a day or so. So absolutely, if you know people that need our services, please get in contact with us because we are here and ready to help. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rowland. Next up, we have Lily Armstrong. Lily is the Community Overdose Consultant with the North Carolina Division of Public Health. She leads the North Carolina Safer Syringe Initiative, overseeing and supporting syringe exchange programs and other harm reduction-based services for people who use drugs. Ms. Armstrong has been involved in harm reduction since 2008 and has worked with programs in North Carolina, New York, Pennsylvania, and Maryland. She joined the Injury and Violence Prevention Branch in September 2016 following the legalization of syringe exchange programs in North Carolina. Ms. Armstrong received her Master of Public Health degree from UNC Chapel Hill, Gillings School of Global Public Health. Lily?
Y'all allow me to try and not go over my 5 minutes, so hold on a minute here. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be with you here today. The Injury and Violence Prevention Branch has a slightly different relationship to the opioid response effort than some of my colleagues here today. Our office became involved in this work through the fatal overdose side. The Injury and Violence Prevention Branch monitors injury, death in the state, and poisoning, which is really what a drug overdose is a type of injury death. So I'm glad to be here to share that perspective as well. In 2016, nearly 5 North Carolinians died every day from drug or medication overdose. Reviewing 2017 data, that number is likely to rise. Our common understanding is that the increased availability and accessibility of opioid pain medication drives this crisis, and for many years that was true. Commonly prescribed opioids were involved in the majority of opioid overdose deaths until about 2011, as you can see on the slide, when illicit opioids started appearing more and more. Currently, illicit opioids are involved in about 80%, looking at 2017 and 2018 data, of unintentional opioid overdose deaths in the state. With a change in drug type comes a change in route of administration. Medications that come as pills are more likely to be taken orally or snorted nasally. Illicit drugs like heroin and increasingly fentanyl are more likely to be injected, which introduces other health risks. We see this reflected in rising hepatitis C cases in North Carolina. Hepatitis C is spread efficiently when people who are injecting drugs don't have sufficient access to sterile syringes and injection supplies. New hepatitis C infections increased more than 900% in North Carolina in 10 years. And you can see that this line roughly mirrors the increase in illicit use contributing to overdose deaths in the state. The biggest increases in acute hepatitis C cases are in the same regions and the same demographic groups as those experiencing the most burden of opioid overdose deaths. There's also a financial imperative here between this increase in cases and the introduction of new hepatitis C treatments. North Carolina Medicaid spending on hepatitis C treatment increased from $3.8 million in 2011 to $85.6 million in 2016. So seeing these developments, North Carolina needed a way to respond to three major health areas. First, overdose prevention and response, including access to and use of the opioid overdose reversal drug naloxone. Second, communicable disease and infection prevention and response, including infections like hepatitis C, HIV, endocarditis, or infection of the heart valves, sepsis and abscesses, and connection to substance use disorder treatment and the recovery community, including, crucially, ways for people with lived experience who have their own history of drug use to use that experience to help other people who are in active use and to connect and reconnect with their communities. North Carolina legalized syringe exchange in 2016 to address these areas. Syringe exchanges work by providing sterile syringes and injection supplies and providing secure disposal of used syringes to prevent injury and infection from sharing and reuse of these supplies. Exchanges offer a unique opportunity to connect with people in active use, to build relationships, and to extend other social and medical services, including treatment. Syringe exchange participants are 5 times more likely to enter substance use disorder treatment than people not involved in these programs. Excuse me. The Division of Public Health has responsibilities under the syringe exchange law, which led to the formation of the North Carolina Safer Syringe Initiative. We work with the Communicable Disease Branch, the Division of Mental Health, Developmental Disabilities, and Substance Abuse Services, and North Carolina Harm Reduction Coalition and other community partners to advise programs, develop best practices, and provide support for emerging services and programs. The law's funding restrictions, when it was originally passed, was a barrier to local health departments who wanted to be able to provide syringe access services within health department settings or folded into programs that they were already doing. So we were able to get that partially changed in the 2017 STOP Act. Exchanges are also included in the statewide opioid action plan, which was adopted in 2017, and they are recognized both as community health and overdose prevention resources. There are currently 29 active programs in North Carolina, covering 34 counties and serving people from all over the state and even beyond our borders. Programs are operated by a variety of agencies, including harm reduction organizations, health departments, faith communities, health systems, substance use treatment providers, and first responders. While the state works to extend substance use disorder treatment to everyone who needs it, we also need a way to keep people safe and healthy as possible in their active use. Veterans are no exception. Exchanges are free, low-threshold programs that offer a variety of services, as well as community and fellowship for people who are often isolated and stigmatized. Encouraging connections to exchanges through other healthcare systems and other healthcare providers is an ongoing project, so we're glad to be looping in with this community today. A list of programs and contact information is available on our website, and I'm always available to connect with community members or to provide guidance on how best to access these services or to connect with programs in your community. We've had some opportunities to work with the VA, and I look forward to more opportunities to get married into this community more. Because exchanges typically have fairly limited administrative capacity, they're very much on the ground, very much doing direct service. I try and take some of that strategic relationship making, do it on their behalves, so I'm happy and very available, here we go, to connect with any of your programs or to provide an introduction, and look forward to opportunities to collaborate. Thank you.
Thank you, Lily. So our next panelist is Curtis Taylor. Curtis is a person in long-term recovery. Mr. Taylor serves as the Executive Director of the Alcohol and Drug Council of North Carolina, who is committed to making their services the best in the country. He is committed to eliminating the stigma attached to the subject.
Thank you, Dee Dee.
That was weird. I'm used to people clapping when I'm announced, when I'm introducing. What's wrong with y'all?
Gotta earn it.
Gotta earn it. Okay. All right, well, here we go. Good afternoon. My name is Curtis Taylor. As Dee Dee mentioned, I am a person in long-term recovery. For me, that means I have not used alcohol or any other drug in over 15 years now. It is my pleasure to serve as the Executive Director of the Alcohol Drug Council of North Carolina. And on behalf of my agency today, I just want to take a moment to thank the servicemen, the servicewomen, the military in general, and especially the family members of these service members for their sacrifice. As a person in long-term recovery, I've been given another chance at life. I'm a homeowner, I'm a business owner, I'm an executive director today, I'm a full-time student, and I know that none of these things would be possible, none of these opportunities would be available to me were it not for the freedoms which are protected by our nation's military. So I just want to thank you for all that you do. I especially want to thank the National Guard today for being on the ground during this hurricane disaster. I'm hearing stories of servicemen in the National Guard being submerged in water for 2, 3, 4 days at a time, putting their lives on the line to save your life and my life. So I just want to honor that and thank you for your service. One of the main functions of the Alcohol Drug Council is that we operate a fully functioning information and referral hotline. So we have a 1-800 number that serves the citizens of North Carolina, where any person that are seeking services for substance use disorder, whether that be treatment, whether it be detox, whether it be medication-assisted, recovery housing, or just simply need to know where a mutual aid group meeting is taking place. They call our hotline, and my call response staff assesses that particular individual situation, determines the appropriate level of care, and we do our very best to make that appropriate referral to a service provider within that individual's community. I think that the biggest thing that we offer, especially to the veterans and service members, is that the first thing we're going to do is just simply listen. What's unique about our agency is the time that we spend on each individual phone call. We're not rushed, we're not rushing you, it's not a 10, 15 minute deal where we have to wait and get to the next client. We take our time, we listen to that mother, we listen to that father, that husband, that wife, or that individual themselves. My call response staff is primarily themselves also in long-term recovery, and so a lot of times, most often, they can relate to that individual story and identify. We provide education, we provide comfort, we provide hope to those individuals and let them know that there is help available. Most importantly, the information we're providing is accurate. So we house a tremendous database with service providers all over the state of North Carolina. And the way our system is structured, every single one of those service providers gets validated at least once per year, just to make sure that the information we're putting out there to the public is legitimate, is accurate, and effective. Because God forbid we refer somebody to something that no longer exists, or we tell somebody that they can get a service at a particular place and they find out, you know what, I can't, and that's it, I'm done, I give up. We never want to be responsible for anything like that. We also coach family members not to be enablers. We may introduce the family member to mutual aid groups and things of that nature. Sometimes folks call us, sometimes veterans, who need something other than substance use disorder treatment or recovery support services. And so now, thanks to our contractor, Brenda Monforti, and Mr. Jeff Smith, we're now connected with NC Serves that can deal with homelessness, that can deal with clothing, and all sorts of services that we might not necessarily have those components within our database to make that referral. So it's an interactive, it's a reciprocal relationship between us and NC Serves, because sometimes NC Serves may need to refer somebody to our hotline number to make that substance use disorder treatment referral. We also utilize the Veterans Crisis Line for special circumstances. We're not attempting to provide services ourselves. We just want to make sure that we are equipped with accurate and up-to-date information so that we can provide that, we can make that warm handoff, so to speak, whether it's to the Southlight program or whatever the case may be. A lot of times, one of the main phone numbers that we give out will be the number to that individual's local management entity or managed care organization, whatever catchment area they happen to be in. When that individual has TRICARE insurance, we found out that that can be an extremely complicated situation. And so instead of us attempting to sound intelligent about it, we're going to refer that individual to that TRICARE regional manager so that they can get the real information about what service providers are currently accepting TRICARE, because it's just simply too much for our agency to keep up with. I think that, you know, again, my staff cares about people. My staff themselves that needed help at some point. And so when someone calls, they take it personal and they take that time that's necessary to help that individual, whatever that may mean. We also offer the opportunity for folks to call us back. If for some reason it doesn't work out at that first referral that we gave them, then they're welcome to call us back so that we can continue working until they get the help that they need. So here's our 800 number. That's how most people, the majority of folks, access our helpline at this point. But we also operate a text line and a chat line on our website. And we also have fully functioning social media platforms, Miss Alex in the back. Although some of these I have no idea how they work, but my staff does. And so they make us look good. But we have Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And of course, there's our website, which is alcoholdrughelp.org. I would be remiss if I failed to mention that my agency houses a National Guard service member project, of which Brenda Monforti operates. And so when a National Guards member, they get in contact with Brenda one of three ways. Whether their supervisor makes that assessment and referral to Brenda, or the individual is welcome to do a self-report. They can refer themselves, or sometimes it's just simply an illicit drug screen that they pop positive for some substance, or too much alcohol, smelling alcohol every day. They get in contact with Brenda, and Brenda immediately refers them to one of, I believe it's 9 contractors that we have throughout the state that does a very thorough assessment and a brief intervention if necessary. If the brief interventions turn out not to be enough, that's when it's time to make a referral to a treatment provider, and that's when it's so important to have everybody in this room collaborating together, because it can be really, really tricky figuring out how that individual's treatment gets paid for. So again, we're honored to serve, and we stand ready to help our National Guardsmen or any service member for that matter in any way that we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Curtis. Our next presenter is Meredith Palmer. She is a licensed clinical social worker at VIA Health. She's a care coordination manager there. VIA is the LME-MCO that covers about the 23 or so counties in the western part of the state. She is also VIA's Veterans Point of Contact person. She has been working in the community mental health field for the past 21 years, 12 of which have been with the local LME-MCO in customer services and emergency services, as well as crisis management and now care coordination. Meredith's father served in the Air Force, and her stepfather served in Vietnam in the Air Force. Helping veterans get the support and services they deserve is near and dear to her heart.
I forgot to mention in that I went to school here at NC State, so it's really nice to come back home. Thank you for this opportunity to be here today and to talk about what happens when someone calls our access line. We have a 1-800 number that's manned 24/7, 365 days a year by a live person. You have a warm greeting, answering that telephone and asking how that they can help. Our customer services reps will then do a screening to find out what is the need of the person, and that screening includes asking if they have served in the military or armed forces. If the need is urgent or emergent, we can link directly to one of our mobile crisis management teams out in the community for a face-to-face assessment right then and there. From there, if they have a substance use need for detox or a mental health crisis and need crisis stabilization, we have 3 facility-based crisis units across our region where a person can be detoxed or be served to stabilize their mental health crisis. We also have 2 behavioral health urgent cares in our region, one in Haywood County and one in Asheville, where anyone could walk in 24 hours, 7 days a week for an assessment and then up to 23-hour observation to get them on to the care that they need. And most of the time, that care is back into the outpatient community, back with wraparound services. If the need of the person calling us is routine, then our folks will link them to one of our comprehensive providers. We have them in all 23 counties. So they will have a comprehensive clinical assessment to determine what their needs are. And the services they may receive could be anywhere from a sort of community treatment team, which is a very intensive service for someone with severe and persistent mental illness or co-occurring substance use. It could be community support team, which is also an intensive community-based service. Or it could be your traditional outpatient services or substance abuse intensive outpatient services. All of our comprehensive care centers are also open to walk-ins anytime during 8 to 5. A person can walk into any of the comprehensive care centers in our 23 county region and receive that assessment and linkage to care. If a person has a need that is beyond mental health or substance use, we know social determinant needs are also great in the communities, and so we can either link to 211 or NC Serves through our partnerships with them as well. Our care coordination department also has a special process. For anyone receiving care coordination, we do a comprehensive health risk assessment. And if a person identifies through our questionnaire that they are a family member or a member who has served in the military, we will educate about NC Serves and we will make a referral to NC Serves for any of the social determinant needs that they may have. Housing, or a big one, is they need help with finding out if they may qualify for benefits. Maybe they have a discharge that's other than honorable, and they need to see if that could be appealed. So we make referrals primarily for that reason. We also do a lot of outreach in the community. We have folks at the Veterans Stand Down event in Macon County today. We've participated in the Stand Down in Asheville and various other events to make sure that folks do know that we're an option when folks don't have insurance or VA benefits or have Medicaid. So that's it. Does anybody have any questions? Oh, no, we don't. That's not it. That's not it. Sorry. We also participate regularly with NC Serves Western Network and mental health roundtables. And getting to know the other providers in the network. We can make and receive referrals through NC Service as well. As you heard already, the partnership with North Carolina DHHS for the additional funding to support all the great work that NC Service networks are doing across our state and in our catchment. We also have a few providers that specialize in veterans treatment. One of those is NC Brookhaven, who regularly attends this meeting as well. They provide ACT services that is specifically focused to veterans in our region, in the Asheville area. And we also have a veterans treatment court in Buncombe County that's highly successful. And we also have a care coordinator that partners with that program to ensure that folks involved in the treatment court have access to care if they don't have funding or the connection to the VA. I think that is all. Anybody have any questions? Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, our next presenter is Dr. Tad Klopfelter. He's a licensed clinical psychologist in the state of North Carolina and addiction specialist. He completed his undergraduate work at Wake Forest University, his master's degree at Emory University, and a doctoral degree at the Georgia School of Professional Psychology in Atlanta. He completed a 2-year postdoctoral fellowship in addiction medicine at Columbia University in New York and remained there as an assistant professor. He is currently the president and CEO of Southlight Healthcare, a private, not-for-profit behavioral health care provider, which has been around for 40 years or more, right? 1970. Prior to his appointment as president of Southlight Healthcare, he served as director of research and clinical supervisor for the organization.
Thanks, Dee Dee. I don't have any slides for you, but hopefully that'll be a no less engaging conversation. One that I regret, I wish I had had information about the organization, but I have that available and we'll make it available to all of you after we meet today, so my apologies for that. But I do want to tell you a little bit about Southlight and how we interface with veterans and how we do that intentionally and how we'd like to do it even more so. I'd like to echo what Curtis said about thanking the women and men in our local area in the state and beyond who serve in the military and the armed forces. We owe them all a debt of gratitude and thank you for working with them and serving them in your daily work and support. Southlight, as Dee Dee says, has been around since 1970, almost 50 years now. Founded as a addiction treatment organization, evolving to include co-occurring mental health disorders over time, to so-called whole person care. Not that we necessarily treat every facet of a person's life, but that we approach treatment and care that way, so that we are looking at a person holistically and not simply someone with a substance use disorder or something related. And we work very closely in partnership with so many of the institutions with which you represent and partner providers locally and around the state, and some of the folks at the table here, including the state authority that Dee Dee represents, and others. So we're very connected in the state and local workings relative to behavioral health care. Most of the veterans that we serve at Southlight, and last year we served about 12,000 persons in some form or fashion with substance use disorders or mental health disorders, either via direct care, education, prevention services, criminal justice services, or the like. And one of the ways that we do that is through treatment, which is the primary thing I want to talk to you about today. That's largely through an outpatient treatment basis. So we're dealing with folks who have a substance use disorder or a mental illness and their family members often. And we're able to do that on an outpatient basis, either with intensive outpatient services or less intensive outpatient services. The more intense the services, the greater are we touching the patients, whether they're military or not, and the more we're able to help them holistically. For example, for folks in our intensive outpatient program, if they are homeless or marginally housed and need housing supports in the early part of their care, Southlight provides that for them via partnership with Oxford House and other recovery homes. And we pay for the care during that first 3 months while folks are most intensively in treatment and either securing or resecuring employment so that they can continue that housing after the 3-month period is up. We're getting great results with that. We do medication-assisted treatment. That's already been mentioned today by some of our other panelists. We have at any point in time about 650, 700 persons in medication-assisted treatment of one form or the other. We also do adolescent and family treatment. We were one of the first in the state. I think we were the first provider to offer syringe exchange on our campus in partnership with North Carolina Harm Reduction Coalition. And that program has been effective for us. We also utilize a large peer support service in caring for patients. That's a non-clinical, but sort of case management, if you will, service where folks with lived experience and training interface with our clients to help them navigate their treatment world and their larger world for shorter and longer term success, with the emphasis on sustainability of the gains that are made and the recovery efforts that are undertaken. Most of the veterans that we serve are either don't have TRICARE insurance or have some other form of insurance coverage. We would love to, and have tried a number of times, to get on the TRICARE panel, and certainly if any of you have any suggestions about how to be effective there, we'd be interested. It would certainly allow us to serve many more veterans with expert behavioral health, psychiatry, addiction medicine, addiction counseling, family treatment, things of that nature in and around the triangle if we were able to do that. But largely the folks now are ones who do not have those insurances and come to us in other ways. But at any point in time, that's about 15 to 20% of our population are veterans. And at any point in time, we typically have about 800 to 1,000 persons on the books. So you can see that's a sizable number of people. And if we had the TRICARE panel resources, it'd be a lot more. So we are still intentional. We have a number of staff who are veterans and who care about serving this population and are intentional about doing so. And I'm glad to be with you today to share you more about who Southlight is, how we serve veterans, and how we'd like to do that even more robustly in the future. Be happy to take any questions if you have them. And I will follow up with you, Jeff, to get Southlight's information.
Thank you, Ted. Okay, how are we doing on time? We're good?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
I've got a question.
Absolutely, please, no.
Yeah. Ilario Pantano, I'm the former state director of Veterans Affairs, and now I have the opportunity of working with America Serves around the country and certainly helping it to be more active here in North Carolina. And I heard a couple of you mention in your intake process, you're identifying the veteran population. And I wanted to ask you, Curtis and Lily, is that something that you all do as well? And are you kind of tracking? Obviously, Meredith, I know that you are, but are you all, do you have visibility on the percentages of veterans as your clients or as the respondents to your services?
Yes.
Do you have some ballpark? So from TAD, we got about 15 to 20%. If veterans represent about 10% of the state's population and they're over-presenting by, 100%. Do you have a sense, are they over-presenting with regards to substance abuse calls or things like that, or are they on track about with their population?
Not to my agency specifically. What wouldn't be in that number that my database would spit out would be the folks that Brenda are dealing with, National Guard members. So the number, I guess it will be somewhat higher, but no, there is not an overrepresentation, at least to my particular hotline.
I'm not aware that for overdose deaths, I'm not aware that we've pulled out any numbers of being able to attribute veteran status to anybody. That's something I'm happy to look into. For syringe exchange programs, they're intentionally very no questions asked for the most part, not collecting a lot of personal information because people are afraid that their use will be made public. There are a few exchanges that, based on where they're located and the backgrounds of the people who are running them, they do have a particular interest in connecting with veterans communities. But as for the number of syringe exchange participants that have a service history,
Then just a quick follow-up. Do you, especially Curtis and Lily, do you see calls from family members kind of calling about a spouse?
Yeah.
Does that happen more than the actual principal? What's the percentage that it's a spouse calling about someone else that they're looking for resources for versus the actual individual principal looking for resources? Do you have any rough information around that?
I hesitate to throw out an estimate, percentage-wise, but the answer to your question is yes. Yes, we get a lot of calls from family members as opposed to the actual individual.
Is that true also for you?
For exchanges, it's typically somebody's friend says, oh, hey, I picked up syringes from this program, you should try going there sometime. That's typically person-to-person referrals made that way. There are inquiries about, especially for naloxone, getting a naloxone kit from parents, especially, but from family members wanting to know what kinds of resources and information they can have on hand to be able to share.
Other questions?
Yes, Dr. Cogswell, one of the things that I want to thank you for helping save some of our veterans in our program with the MAP. One of the things that we see is long-term being on MAP. Is there a provision or protocol for working to try to get that individual off of MAP eventually, or kind of tapping down some of the dependency on that?
So, thank you for the question and the partnership. And just to be clear about the question, when he says MAT, it stands for medication assisted treatment, and primarily with that we mean for opioids. Now, that's not what the broader definition really means, but for this purpose, I think you mean opioid treatment, and that being with medication assisted therapies like methadone, Suboxone, Univale, Zubsolv, these medicines that help folks who are in recovery from opioid dependence live happy, healthy, productive lives. And the question is, how long do they stay on those medicines, or is there an effort to titrate them off over time? And the answer is yes, and that's literally about the extent of it, because it is a little bit like other chronic relapsing conditions, which substance use disorders are. So with hypertension or diabetes or asthma, other chronic medical conditions like substance use disorder, the titration of medications really happens very individually from person to person. So we have some best practices guesses, and then it's very much up to the individual and the family how that happens over time in consultation with the doctor. So some of the newer medicines that are so-called partial agonists, unlike methadone, which is one of the older first-line treatments, it is a full agonist. But some of the newer ones are geared towards shorter term treatment. So we would typically have somebody on for, you know, roughly a year-ish before we're starting to think about shifting. And at the same time, plenty of people stay on for multiple years, and some people even less than a year. So it varies a lot, but there's certainly that component is always in the mix in our clinical thinking.
I've got it would be a lightning round question of what is the top co-occurring need that they're seeing among the various clientele for each of your activities. We have, obviously, in the SERVS networks, we're not seeing everybody in the state, we're only seeing users of the networks, and we have some data around co-occurrence, but just off the top, could you each just say the one or two needs that come up either in the hotline or in therapy or in treatment that is the most prevalent co-occurring need that you all have identified?
I'll start. Medication-assisted treatment, especially the newer ones, as Dr. Klopfelter mentioned, and housing, recovery housing.
I'll echo the housing. I was going to say that as well. We provide a lot of housing for veterans.
I would say housing too is a big one, recovery based housing, and medication-assisted treatment access is huge. We have limited state funds and then a bit of federal cures dollars that has helped to expand some access, but again, it's so limited.
Lily?
Housing, employment, legal support.
Ours is the same, the housing, and, yeah, housing, and then employment for us right now, at least within the Salisbury area, we struggle with the communities that are not Salisbury, so, to really maintain the community partners.
Other questions?
I may have one. I'm Jim Parker. I work with the Department of Commerce for getting disabled veterans employment. And one of our main purposes is to identify barriers that they act to employment. And sometimes it is substance abuse, sometimes it's just education, sometimes it's just a felony record. You know, it's just all these things that we sort of have to take into account to try to resolve to get the person into an employable scope. And I consider myself sort of a career counselor because I have to sort of figure out a game plan on how to get this person to achieve a level to where, one, they feel confident enough to stick with the job, to have the skill sets to continue the job, and to maintain it. And a lot of times, and I'm very rural, I mean, I'm working with 3 counties that are very rural, so my resources are sort of limited, but this question is sort of addresses technology, telehealth or telemedicine or telehome services. Looking at this last couple weeks of events, there's a lot of veterans that can't even get out of their house. I think telehealth or telehome services would be a huge advantage for me to be able to personally reach out to them and say, hey, are you okay? Because right now there's some houses I can't even get to see a dual wellness check. And a lot of times half of my job is outreach and the other half is employment services. So I'm trying to seek them out at shelters, but if they're isolated, there's no way I can get to them. And I worry about that because I might not hear from them for about a month. And some do, a lot of them are quite homeless. They're living with families or friends. So I try to get them resources to get housing. I can totally, relate to that housing issue because that's something I try to address almost every day when I talk to veterans. And besides the employment, that's my job to try to get them employment. But a lot of times I have to eliminate a lot of the other barriers. And along with just a wellness check. I think mental health services would be good, would benefit from tele-home services. So it's just something, I know the VA is involved with telehome and telecommunication type stuff. And I'm just thinking, what would be the most effective way, if my job is to outreach to veterans, I think that's another avenue that I could have at a career center to be able to extend my services, to be able to really communicate with the ones that need it. Because a lot of times they'll just walk in and, hey, I'm looking for a job. But there's other ones that won't even leave the house because of maybe mental health issues. There's some that are self-medicating, so they'll need substance abuse assistance. So there's all these things, but if I could see them, you know, through a tablet or a monitor, and say, hey, how you doing? I've heard from you in a while. That would probably tell me a lot more than, say, a phone call or an email. So I think it's a little bit more personal, but it's a different way. Have any of you experienced telehealth or telemedicine?
The Salisbury VA, we don't do it in substance abuse services, but our general outpatient, absolutely. All of our outpatient providers have the telehealth training. We do have a telehome initiative to try to reach those people. Specifically for the VA, we do have a challenge because we are federal property. The therapists are licensed in every other state, and so when you do tele to home, there's some restrictions on the licensing about what you can provide, meaning the services that you can provide. But the VA has done a great job so far, being able to work with the state licensing boards and to really determine what requirements are necessary so that we can reach out. It's also an equipment issue to make sure that the connection is there on the other side. So while your career center may have a great connection, if you're trying to use some dial-up in the middle of nowhere, you're gonna have some issues.
I understand that because, you know, I have to go rural, so I have to have a hotspot.
Right, exactly.
Connectivity.
Exactly.
I'm a technician by trade for the military, so, you know, putting together the equipment for it to function, if the patients or the customers are not gonna want to connect A to B and all that, you just gotta go set it up.
Absolutely.
And make it easy for them, because then they'll use it.
But we've certainly had success. I mean, we've certainly reached a lot of veterans who are housebound for whatever reason it is in the general mental health sector.
On a similar subject, what do y'all see as the biggest barriers to folks reaching out to you to seek treatment?
I think it,
I mentioned the one already, which was the insurance, you know, the panels to be able to, you know, help folks who are reaching out to us and tell them we can make it into a track.
I think another one would be stigma. There's still a tremendous amount of stigma attached to substance use disorder and public perception that it's that person's fault and they should be ashamed of themselves. Why don't they just get over it and stop and pick themselves up from bootstraps and that sort of thing, as opposed to recognizing that it's scientifically proven as a chronic illness. It's a brain disease.
I would say that as well, stigma, and not just about substance use, but about being a person in the military. You know, you're trained to be strong and be tough, and you can handle this. And so I think the more that we can get the message out from peers who are in recovery themselves, who are veterans, they could get out that word. And one of the things that I wanted to mention that we do is in North Carolina peer support training, the 40-hour training that's required for certification. We have a team that trains on that almost every month, and NC Serves has been a big referral source to that, and Brandon Wilson participates in that training as well to talk about the military culture. And so I think the more that we can get peers in place to spread that word that help is okay, it's okay to not be okay and to ask for help.
I think at least in the VA, because I'm connected to a larger medical center, is that we have people who are willing potentially to say that they have a substance use issue, maybe in a primary care setting, but they don't think it's bad enough to necessitate coming over to our building with these substance abuse signs everywhere. And there's certainly a lot of people that think if I don't have a needle in my arm, I don't really have a problem. And I don't really need that level of service. And so what we're trying to do within the Salisbury VA is try to co-locate. Can we co-locate some of our substance abuse social workers within primary care and within some of the specialty clinics so they don't actually have to make the trek over to our specific substance abuse, the 4th floor, to see if we can reach more of these people that are affected by the stigma or that are in the mild to moderate range. I think for people in the severe range that know that they need help and know that it's problematic, I think we reach that percentage, which is smaller than the people who are in the mild to moderate category. I think we do a much better job serving the severe people with severe addiction as opposed to the mild to moderate.
Is there a waiting list for individuals to get into the program?
Depends on which program. We don't currently, so our residential program waxes and wanes. Right now, no. I could get someone in next Tuesday if we needed to. Within the federal system, we have a problem if it's more than a 30-day wait for residential. IOP is a little bit different if they want the intensive outpatient. Most of the time, the answer is no. It's cyclical for us. Generally in the spring and in the fall, there will be times that there is a wait for IOP, but at least for the Salisbury VA, right now, we currently have great access for veterans in need.
Any other questions?
One more question.
Okay.
If I had a question about what I should do with a veteran that maybe has mental health issues that they don't really want to, take care of themselves, is there someplace I can talk to someone about maybe getting advice on maybe I can do this? Like, I don't know. I've encouraged the veteran to go get psychiatric help. He went to the VA. He says the counselor or the therapist was an atheist. He quit going. He's paranoid, I think. He thinks everybody's listening on the phone calls and all that stuff. But and I'm asking myself, what can I do? I don't know what to do.
You can explain to them that it's the government and they couldn't be that coordinated.
But, I just sort of have a stalemate, I just sort of stuck. I was like, what do I do now? Because it's a voluntary thing, right? If he wants to
Sure. If they're not in imminent danger of harming themselves or others, we can't do anything. You can certainly encourage them to try again. I always encourage people to advocate for themselves. I think at times a lot of the veterans think I shouldn't have to. And the problem with that is you're not going to click with everybody. It doesn't hurt a provider's feelings if you say, hey, that didn't work. You don't actually even have to tell them. You can walk up to the checkout desk and say, I would like not to be meaning I don't want to make my follow-up appointment with that person. I would like to switch providers. And so really encouraging them not to write it off. As hard as that is, if they're a combat veteran, a vet center may be more palatable because it's not the VA. So, I think there are resources out there, but there's a lot of people that have one bad experience and want to write it off, write the VA off, and it's sad because there is a lot of help available if you're willing to advocate for yourself and navigate the system. And it's a big system. I mean, it's not easy, but there's good help there.
Yeah, and I would also say certainly making connections to professionals that are working, I don't know exactly what county or certain county you're serving, but certainly a professional connection within the VA to those providers, or even if you have a question, you can always call the visiting office and we can refer you to the
Thank you, panel.
Thank you very much, everyone. Especially Dee Dee for such a great job moderating this rowdy panel. All right, so if I can invite Sergeant Major Barry up to talk about NC Serves and deliver our updates. And while he's on his way up there, I would like to ask a special friend of ours, Donald Rouse, to stand up, please, Donald. Donald works for VIA Behavioral Health out in the western end of the state and helps Meredith take care of people in 23 different counties. They're also a wonderful partner to the NC Serves efforts and have served as the folks who make it possible for us to invest in the NC Serves networks and have shown us how they can be successful. So Donald, thank you and everyone at VIA for all of your help on this.
Right click. All right. Anyway, okay. That's all I needed to know was right click. Okay. I know we're getting a little pressed for time, ladies and gentlemen, but let me speak a few things about what's going on with your NC Serves networks across the Carolinas. As this hurricane was approaching, we kind of collectively put our heads together. My great friend Jarek down there from Coastal is there in the back. Mr. Alorio is here. Brandon Wilson is out doing the Lord's work right now. I think he's up in New York as far as I know right now, trying to make stuff happen. And our great partners down in NC Serves Metrolina are doing everything they can to reduce and even eliminate veteran suicide and their marriage challenge down there. But what we did was we came together and said, okay, we need to have a plan. And the Coastal Network was heavily impacted, of course, not just the veteran population, but the network itself. But due to the beauty and the flexibility of the Unite Us system that we use, it's transparent that there has been no reduction in services, because that's the beauty of it. And Jarek and I spent time this morning over at my location, kind of just walking through that, what's that mean, and how are we prepared, and how do we move forward in the things that we do. There's people in this room that have been a part of this from the get-go. Mike down there from Michael from the DAV. I got a fire mission yesterday. I was literally sitting in my office. He calls my office. I happened to be there, which almost never happens. And he literally was like a fire mission. He's like, Paul, in Bladen County, there's a veteran here, and the trailer he used to live in is physically gone. And we went from there. And the beauty was that at one point, for about an hour, we had NC Serves Coastal, NC Serves Western, NC Serves Central Carolina, all three working on that at the same time because of the severity and complexity of what was going on, and that was the beauty of it. And then really it ended up back in Jarek's battle space, and he was personally involved and is still working on it, and I seen him step out, and I bet he was working on it as we were talking here. So anyway, a little bit back to our panel. I want to jump over to that real quick. Curtis, about a month ago, I had the pleasure of having coffee with this young lady named Brenda, and I have just absolutely for it. If I'm an old Marine, and if I was in a firefight, Brenda would be right next to me, or I'd be behind her. That is a special human being, and I'm glad that she's part of this and what she's doing with the National Guard. But it's her energy and vision, and I was sitting there drinking a coffee, and it's like, wow, this is a great person, and the relationship and the partnerships are only going to grow from there. So thank you for somebody, whoever got a hold of her. I want to thank them, and I'll buy them dinner someday, because it is that important. Let's talk Veterans Treatment Court real quick. It's ironic that I was talking to a lady that works for me, a young lady named Rebecca, who lives and works in a triad, and she was out there in Forsyth County, DTC, and she was on the phone with me saying, hey, there's a guy named Philip who wants to be a Unite Us user and maybe the judge, and we're going to take every veteran that comes through this court and we're going to put them in NC Serves. All that was going on just before I came over here. It's ironic. And I was exchanging some emails in the parking lot before I even came in here. So the momentum, the power, and the energy is going right there. But in that co-occurrence, and L'Oreal, what you brought up, I was feverishly writing over here. making some side notes, because I think there's a lot of things that we can do in here. So let me see if this actually works. Here's your monthly dashboard. You're gonna see this, and this is what's going on. But hey, we're 280 some providers, 4 networks, 16,000 requests. This is the stuff that's going on. You can see it. Look up at the top, every time the panel discussed, if you can look there in the middle, housing, employment, benefits, money, it's the same thing. We're all in this together, pulling in the same direction for our veterans. I think we cannot take for granted for 1 second that just a few people in this room, and hopefully there's a few thousand listening in, the difference that you're truly making just by meeting in the parking lot and talking for 5 minutes and making a difference. You got your individual networks, and you can see these, and I'm not going to go through them and do it. Brandon Wilson, I don't think this young man sleeps. I know I don't sleep much, but I don't think he ever sleeps, if you know Brandon. He kind of put this storyline together. He probably did it in a parking lot on a phone, knowing him. But it was very impressive that the NC Serves Western, all the way out in the mountains, of what they were doing, you know? And I was talking to Brandon on the phone, text, email, the whole time that this hurricane's going on, and we continue to communicate. But you can look through this timeline and just see, as I'm speaking up here and running my mouth, of what was going on this timeline. It starts all the way back on September 11th. Wait a minute, I've still got one more slide. And how his team and Brandon and how they're working with FEMA, and how they're doing the follow-up, and how important that it is that this is so far-reaching. I have one of my community coordinators working with San Diego 211 as we speak, and she's still working with a veteran that got stranded here and ran out of money and resources. I was talking to Michael about another one that got stranded in a Bojangles parking lot during the hurricane, right off of I-40. She had to sleep in her car. That ripped my heart out that night. She's elderly, she has challenges, but they got her in a shelter and they got it moving forward. But there's so many other needs that are out there in doing it. I'm not going to talk a lot about this data. You can look at it, but we are well past north of 30 and probably headed up into 100 or 100 plus when it comes to hurricane-related NC Serves support that is being done out there by all of your networks. And I want to make it known that it's bigger than even North Carolina, that we have South Carolina Serves down there, but it's bigger than that. It's the other networks and the energy and the power and the resources. And an example I'll use locally is Brenda, outside probably of her normal duties, said, Paul, I got a veteran, a Marine veteran who really needs some dental help. It's not substance abuse, it's dental, because she cares. And I was running out of resources and time, so I just threw it out to the network. And who jumps up on the network? Martin, right down there. Jumps up on the network and says, hey, Paul, have you thought about X? I didn't. I was tired and I was distracted on other things. But that's the beauty of the network, where he said, okay, hey, think about this resource. So we've got Brenda, we've got Martin back there behind you, who now that Brenda's got that veteran connected with a resource. I won't say it's through UNC too loud, but anyway. Anyway, most of my money goes to this establishment because my daughter's in grad school at NC State, by the way. I'm going to do a story, and then I'm going to leave you alone. Okay. This is one of the referrals we got. Okay, and I'm going to read it this short. It said, I'm a veteran who resides in Leland, North Carolina. That's Brunswick County. Was directly affected by the Hurricane Florence disaster. I am humbly asking for financial assistance due to a mandatory evacuation in which I had to purchase fuel, food, room and board. Additionally, I've had to incur more expenses than I've had expected because of roadways and conditions have made it impossible to return home. The governor of North Carolina declared my county for a mandatory evacuation. In sum, I'm requesting assistance with my financial burden from evacuating from my initial expenses upon returning to make conditions livable until utilities are fixed. Potable water, cell phone services, food, battery-operated appliances, etc. If an amount may be needed, I perceive that $500 would suffice. I hope that you may consider my need, and I greatly appreciate any help or services that may be provided. It's been a very solemn week, and the state has been through a lot, and I understand there may be greater priority needs at this time, but I'd be thankful for any help. Thank you. Signed, John Doe, United States Marine Corps, retired. Got dozens of those. These are humble people that have lost everything, and you look at TV, and Michael was down there yesterday, and he saw it. Their whole life is sitting on the curb, okay? And as Colonel Falls said, This is gonna take a long damn time. I grew up as a farmer out in the country. I can't imagine what my father would have done when he lost that livelihood. My father's a Korean War vet. It's passed on and blessed his soul, but I can't imagine. It's like after a minute, how the hell do you get back up on your feet? It's gonna take a village, okay? Ladies and gentlemen, I run my mouth plenty enough, and I thank you for your time.
Yes. Let people know, Bladen County, I've been asking veteran help. We still have houses, guys, 5 foot of water. We still have some houses that don't even see the eaves of the house. And they've lost everything. I mean, everything.
And I know Jeff Doyle was down, weren't you over in emergency management this morning? The entire state is mobilizing on that. And Michael, that leads actually to the next thing. I was in a meeting earlier this week, more Wolfpack love. On the other side of campus at the School of Design, our Operation Home team from the Governor's Working Group is working with the NC State School of Design to design a veterans micro home that will be suitable for disabled veterans as well and can be built by churches or high schools around the state. That's the only way we're going to put 1,000 houses up this year. So this semester, that is the project, and Terry Albaugh, our Veterans Homeless Coordinator, has been leading that charge. He raised all of the money to pay for that semester studio outside of normal channels. We raised $100,000 to do this. So that'll be something that we'll have for the beginning of next year, is plans for a veterans micro house that is suitable for disabled veterans, that is zone safe and usable in every one of the 100 counties. Because if your county has 10 homeless vets, I know you have 10 churches. And that's the way we solve this. So thank you to our friends from NC State. Also, Daniel Hackley and Nick Drake, gentlemen, they are the NC State Veterans Services Department. Daniel, as you well know, many of you used to work with us at Military and Veterans Affairs, and is co-author of the First Resource Guide. Guys, thank you very much for stepping up and giving us a home on such short notice, and all of the technical support. We couldn't have done this without you, literally. Also, ladies from the Governor's Institute, we have Alex and Amy in the back, and they stepped up in a huge way. Let's all give a shout out to them, and to Anthony McLeod, their leader, who is now a daddy, and I'm voting for the name Connor McLeod. Thank you very much, everyone, and at this moment, I think we can go to just individual introductions. If you'd like to stand up and tell the group what you do and why you're here, and then we can do some mingling and make the connections that make this group really work. Thank you very much, everyone, and thank you for all your hard work.
Hey, Jeff, do you want to ask if anybody's on the phone first, just so that way they can hear them?
Anyone on the phone? Bueller? I think we're good. So, all right, everyone, mingle, announce.
Mark. I've got good.